There is a common misconception that gets repeated so often, it has become almost impossible to see through. The idea that setting boundaries means pushing people away. That protecting yourself means becoming cold. That having limits makes you difficult to love. By the end of this video, we will go through what boundaries actually are and what they are not, why people react so strongly when limits are set, how to distinguish between healthy protection and harmful isolation, and much more. The confusion starts with language. Boundaries sounds like barriers, sounds like walls, sounds like something that keeps people out and loneliness in. But that understanding misses something fundamental. Walls are fixed. They do not move. They do not discriminate. They keep everything out, the bad and the good, the dangerous and the nourishing. A person behind walls is protected but also trapped, safe but also starving. Boundaries are different. Boundaries are gates. They open and close. They allow passage for what is welcome and deny entry to what is harmful. They require constant participation, constant choice, constant presence. A wall says nothing gets in. A boundary says I decide what gets in. The difference is agency, control. The ongoing act of choosing rather than the static condition of hiding. People who have never developed boundaries often swing to the extreme of walls when they first try to protect themselves. After years of letting everything in, they suddenly let nothing in. The pendulum overcorrects. What looks like strength is actually fear wearing armor. True boundaries do not come from fear. They come from clarity, from knowing what nourishes and what depletes, from understanding that not everyone deserves access and not everyone should be denied. There is a reason boundary setting triggers such intense reactions in others. When someone has operated without limits for years, the people around them have adjusted to that. They have come to expect unlimited access, unlimited tolerance. Unlimited, yes. When boundaries suddenly appear, it disrupts the entire dynamic. The person setting boundaries has changed the rules of a game that everyone else was comfortable winning. The reactions are predictable, guilt-tripping. You never used to be like this. What happened to you? I guess you just do not care about me anymore. Anger. Who do you think you are? You are being so selfish. You have changed and not for the better. Testing. Pushing against the new limits to see if they hold. Escalating behavior to see how much pressure it takes to break through. Withdrawal. If I cannot have unlimited access, then I want nothing at all. None of these reactions mean the boundaries are wrong. Often they mean the boundaries are exactly right. The strength of the reaction reveals how much the other person was benefiting from the absence of limits. There is a phrase worth remembering. The people who are most upset by your boundaries are the ones who benefited most from you having none. This does not mean every negative reaction indicates manipulation. Sometimes people are genuinely confused by change. Sometimes they need time to adjust. The difference is whether they eventually respect the new limits or continue pushing indefinitely. The guilt that comes with setting boundaries is almost universal, especially for people raised to believe that their purpose is meeting others' needs, that their value comes from usefulness, that love requires constant sacrifice. For these people, saying no feels like betrayal, like cruelty, like proof that they are the selfish monster they were always afraid of being. But the guilt is a lie, a remnant of programming that was never about their well-being. It was about keeping them compliant, keeping them available, keeping them in service. Real love does not require the absence of boundaries. Real love requires them, because boundaries create the conditions for genuine connection rather than exploitation. A relationship without boundaries is not intimate. It is enmeshed. Two people bleeding into each other with no clear sense of where one ends and the other begins. This feels close, but it is actually suffocating. It looks like love, but it prevents the individuality that real love celebrates. Healthy relationships have two whole people choosing to connect. Not two half people desperately merging to feel complete. Boundaries make that wholeness possible. There is a practice that helps distinguish between walls and gates. It involves asking two questions. First, am I protecting myself from something specific or from everything in general? Boundaries target specific behaviors, specific people, specific dynamics. Walls are indiscriminate. If the answer is everything, that is not a boundary, that is fear. Second, can this limit be adjusted if circumstances change? Boundaries flex. They respond to new information. They loosen when trust is earned and tighten when trust is broken. Walls do not flex. They are permanent by nature. If the answer is never, regardless of what happens, that is not a boundary. That is a prison. The goal is not to need no one. The goal is to need wisely. To open gates for those who have demonstrated they can be trusted inside. To close gates for those who have demonstrated they cannot. Some people will never accept boundaries. They experience any limit as rejection, any no as abandonment, any gate as a wall. These people will leave, and their leaving, while painful, is clarifying. It reveals that the relationship depended on one person having no self-protection. That is not a relationship worth mourning. Other people will adjust. They might struggle initially. They might need time to understand the new landscape, but eventually they respect the limits. They appreciate the clarity. They recognize that loving someone with boundaries is loving someone who knows how to take care of themselves. These are the people worth keeping. The transformation from boundaryless to boundaried is not about becoming cold. It is about becoming clear, not about pushing people away, about inviting the right people in. Boundaries are not the end of connection. They are the beginning of connection worth having.